Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Wednesday, April 19th, 2023. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at the premium picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games in Major League Baseball for Wednesday. First up, it's the Tampa Bay Rays taking on the Cincinnati Reds. We're going to see Drew Rasmussen for Tampa Bay. No official starter for the Reds in this game. A tough one for me, but I'm leaning towards the over in this game. Drew Rasmussen is off to a great start this year, but definitely coming off his worst start of the season against the Toronto Blue Jays, where he went 4 1/3 innings, giving up 8 base hits, 5 earned runs, and a homer with 4 walks allowed. So his first 2 starts were really sharp, but those were against the Washington Nationals and the Oakland A's. The first really tough matchup he had. He struggled. Now, this is a tough matchup here, believe it or not. The Cincinnati Reds offensively have not been too shabby this year. They're playing at one of the more hitter-friendly ballparks in baseball, a Great American. I think they can get to Rasmussen for a few runs, and I also don't trust this Reds bullpen. If this is a bullpen game for Cincinnati, certainly think the Rays can get on the board early and often. So I'm going to lean towards the over here for the Rays-Reds game. Next up, it's the Cleveland Guardians taking on the Detroit Tigers. We're going to see Cal Quantrill and Spencer Turnbull on the mound in this one. These teams playing a doubleheader on Tuesday. We know doubleheaders can certainly be taxing for bullpens and obviously the position players that have to play in the lineup for 2 games in one day. But, for me, I do expect a pretty close game early on. Both pitchers kind of been inconsistent to start the year. Turnbull really struggled in his first 2 outings against the Rays and the Red Sox, but then he put together a really strong outing against the Blue Jays. 5 innings, 6 strikeouts. Only 1 earned run, and a 3-1 Tigers win in his last game. But, Cal Quantrill similarly struggled, quite a bit in his first 2 games. His next start against the Nationals, 6 innings, 3 earned runs. It's a quality start there, and the Guardians grabbed a 4-3 win in that game. So I expect a pretty close game early, but I do think the Guardians' bullpen and lineup are much more trustworthy in a close game late. The Guardians team last year and this year have been pretty good in extra inning games and close games late. They're a rally team. So, I do think that this kind of situation benefits them. And Cal Quantrill last year was a money-making machine, so it's usually not a bad idea to be on him. Even though he has struggled in his first 3 outings, he's still 2-1 in terms of the money line price, in terms of the money line for the Guardians. So, give me the Cleveland Guardians here on the money line on the road. Next up, we see Alex Cobb and Trevor Rogers on the mound for this Giants-Marlins matchup. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. We see plenty of low-scoring games in Marlins games this year, but Trevor Rogers, a lefty, facing a Giants team. It's ranked 29th in baseball in both team OPS and isolated power against left-handed pitching. They're also the 4th highest team in terms of strikeout rate, 29.8% strikeout rate for the Giants this year against Southpaws. Rogers coming off his best start of the year against the Diamondbacks. He went 6 innings, 1 earned run with 7 strikeouts. I think he puts together another good outing here. On the other side, Alex Cobb's one of those underrated veteran starting pitchers. He's got a 3.14 ERA in his first 3 games of the season, going 14 1/3 innings, getting 14 strikeouts. He usually limits the walks. He usually earns plenty of missed bats and strikeouts. He keeps the ball on the ground for the most part and doesn't really give up a ton of home runs. And I think he pitches well here against the Marlins team that has had better numbers against lefties than they have against righties. So give me the under here in San Francisco, Miami. I take the first 5 under and lean towards the full game under as well. Next up, we see the Arizona Diamondbacks taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. Madison Bumgarner and Jake Woodford are your starters. Really tough to have a ton of confidence in either of these starting pitching options, but I really think a guy like Madison Bumgarner, a really tough spot to be in against the St. Louis Cardinals lineup that's, yes, struggled mightily with runners in scoring position to start the year, but they're still a lineup that limits strikeouts at the dish. They're 10th lowest in strikeout rate against lefties. Their team OPS against lefties is 7th best in baseball. Their isolated power is in the top 15 as well. Bumgarner struggling with the free passes. He's not really missing bats at all. His last start, only 1 strikeout in 5 innings against the Marlins, who last year was one of the more strikeout-heavy teams against lefties. So he gave up 5 earned runs and 9 base hits in that game against Miami. I just can't trust him here, even at a pitcher-friendly ballpark at Busch Stadium. On the other side, Jake Woodford, like I said, don't have a ton of confidence in him either, but I will say he's coming off his best outing. He went 5 1/3 against the Pirates. No earned runs in that game. Only 3 strikeouts. I would like to see those strikeout numbers rise, but only 1 walk, no home runs allowed. I think Woodford's good enough here for the Cardinals bets to take care of the rest. Give me the St. Louis Cardinals on the money line with a lean to the run line as well. Next up, we see the Philadelphia Phillies taking on the Chicago White Sox with Taijuan Walker and Mike Clevenger on the mound in this one. Similar to what I said for the Guardians-Tigers matchup, we see another matchup here where these teams played a doubleheader on Tuesday, Phillies, White Sox, and you got the White Sox who, going into Tuesday's games, have the highest bullpen ERA in baseball. They've really struggled to start the year in the bullpen, which last year was honestly one of the more, I would say, one of the strengths that the White Sox had, but this year a 7.57 ERA going into Tuesday. And although their advanced numbers are a little bit more promising, it's still a 5.21 xFIP, 4.72 Sierra. It's just rough times here for the White Sox bullpen. We know they have some injuries in the pen as well, and it's tough to back them. But, Mike Clevenger's been good on paper, 2-0 with a 2.20 ERA, but he's also been pretty inconsistent. He's walked 10 batters in 16 and a third innings. He still has less than a strikeout per inning with only 14 Ks in those 16 innings. Yes, he's kept the ball on the ground. He's limited home runs, but he's given up a lot of free passes and a lot of base runners, and he's facing a Phillies lineup that could certainly make right-handed pitchers pay. We've seen at the beginning of the season the Phillies are ranked 7th in baseball in isolated power and 3rd in baseball in team OPS against those righties. So Taijuan Walker, he's been a little bit inconsistent to start the year, but I think he's the better starting pitcher. I think the Phillies have the better lineup and the more trustworthy bullpen, especially after a doubleheader. So give me the Philadelphia Phillies here on the money line. In our next game, we see the Texas Rangers taking on the Kansas City Royals. We're going to see Martin Perez and Brady Singer on the mound in this one. Brady Singer, we know he's got really good strikeout stuff, but he does give up a lot of fly balls and sharp contact, and it's not always the best thing at Kauffman Stadium, which can be a very hitter-friendly ballpark, especially when the wind is blowing out. And we saw that last game for Singer against the Atlanta Braves. 4 home runs allowed. He had 8 strikeouts in 5 innings of work, but he gave up 10 base hits, 8 earned runs, and 4 homers, making it 5 home runs now allowed in his last 11 innings of work. So, against the Rangers team, it's been pretty competitive against right-handed pitching. I do think Singer could struggle in this spot again. But on the other side, the Kansas City Royals, this is a team that offensively we know is off to a dreadful start to the year. Their home games are off to a dreadful start to the year. But when you look at the advanced analytics, it's kind of interesting. When you look at exit velocity for teams, just offensively, exit velocity, the Royals are actually 4th in baseball for the highest average exit velocity behind teams like the Braves, Dodgers, and Orioles. So they're actually making some sharp contact. When you look at hard hit percentage, the Royals are 4th in baseball behind the Braves, Dodgers, and Rays. And when you look at their isolated power numbers against lefties, the Royals are actually in the top half of the league, ranked 14th currently in isolated power. Now, this team's had issues striking out quite a bit against left-handed pitchers, but luckily you're facing a starter in Martin Perez that is a very pitch-to-contact guy, doesn't really earn a ton of strikeouts. We saw in Perez's last start against the Astros, although he's more of a ground ball guy, he's had some issues giving up the long ball. Gave up 2 home runs against Houston, gave up a home run against Chicago, had some control issues in that start against the Astros where he went 5 innings, 2 home runs, like I said, 4 walks allowed. I think this actually could be a good spot for the Royals offensively, so I'm leaning towards the over in this game. I like the over in this game between the Astros and, between the Rangers and the Royals. Next up, we see the New York Mets taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers. We're going to see Max Scherzer and Noah Syndergaard on the mound in this one. 2 pitchers facing their former teams in this game. Now, a couple days ago, when the Mets were originally projected to start Max Scherzer against the Oakland A's, I mentioned that there's a little bit of concerns with me in Scherzer's game. I do think his location's off a little bit, but I also think his velocity, is just down. It's down a couple miles per hour on his fastball. And his 2-strike pitches, his put-away pitches, have not been as sharp this year as they've been in prior years. I still think he's a good pitcher, but I just don't think he's going to be as dominant as he was when he won the Cy Youngs and when he was really one of the best pitchers in baseball, if not the best pitcher in baseball. But, Noah Syndergaard on the other side is really tough to back in this game. He struggled in his last 10 innings of work, his last 2 starts, giving up 14 base hits, 9 earned runs, and 3 home runs along the way. Now, his strikeout stuff has gotten a lot better this year so far, which is a positive sign, but he's really, Noah Syndergaard's a ground ball specialist pitcher, in my opinion. He relies on his sinker quite a bit. So if you're giving up 3 home runs in your last 10 innings, that's where I have a big concern. The New York Mets do a great job of limiting strikeouts, so I do think that Syndergaard's going to be it's going to be tough for him to miss a lot of bats in this game. And I do think the Mets get to their former teammate here. I think Scherzer's good enough. I don't think it's going to be a spotless start. The Dodgers have a very good lineup, and they're a good lineup against righties, so I could see a couple long balls against Scherzer in this game. I think he's good enough here for the Mets to grab the win in the end. So give me the New York Mets on the money line. Next up, we see the Pittsburgh Pirates taking on the Colorado Rockies. Johan Oviedo taking on Austin Gomber in this one. Now, I could see Johan Oviedo giving up a few runs, probably via the long ball in a game like this. We saw him in his lone start at a very hitter-friendly ballpark in Boston at Fenway Park give up 3 home runs in that game. But ever since that start, he's been really sharp. He's had 15 strikeouts in his last 13 2/3 innings, so he's earning swing and misses. he is limiting sharp contact for the most part. He's limiting the free passes, that's for sure. And, he's got a 2.45 ERA. Like I said, I think the Rockies can get to him for a few runs, but it's tough to back the Rockies with Austin Gomber on the mound. When you see the Pittsburgh Pirates in the first game of the series facing off against the lefty and Kyle Freeland, they end the game with 14 runs total by the end of it because they get to the Rockies bullpen as well. Freeland gave up 7 earned runs in that game. Austin Gomber's got an ERA above 9 in his first start at Coors Field. Overall this season, ERA above 8, a whip at 1.6. Not really striking out a lot of guys, giving up at least 1 home run in each of his first 3 starts. Walking a good amount of hitters as well. It's just really tough to back the Rockies in a game like this, especially when you're getting the Pirates at such a good price. So a little bit of a lean towards the over, but I'm going to take the Pittsburgh Pirates here on the money line on the road. Next up is the Chicago Cubs taking on the Oakland Athletics. We're going to see Justin Steele and James Caprillion on the mound in this one, with the Chicago Cubs earning 20 base hits and 10 runs in the first game of this series, facing a starter in James Caprillion in Game 3 of this series. It's tough to back the A's in this game. James Caprillion, a 12.15 ERA. In his first 3 starts, he's given up at least 5 earned runs in each of his first 3 starts against the Guardians, Rays, and Mets. We know pretty solid lineups, but hey, watch out. These Chicago Cubs offense, the lineup's actually been pretty solid for the Cubs this season. Justin Steele's also been solid for Chicago. He's gone at least 6 innings in each of his first 3 starts. The Cubs have won 2 of his first 3 starts, and he's missed a lot of bats. The home runs were a little bit concerning in his last game, but limited the free passes in that one against a very tough Dodgers lineup. I think he's more than good enough here for the Cubs to win and cover the run line in the end. Next up, we see the Milwaukee Brewers taking on the Seattle Mariners. We're going to see Marco Gonzalez and Eric Lauer on the mound in this one. Neither of these starters I feel too confident in at the moment, but when you look at the Brewers last year struggling against left-handed pitching for most of the season, going into this year, they actually, were doing pretty well at the beginning of the year against lefties, but now you look at the numbers, the Brewers are ranked 25th in baseball in team OPS, they're ranked 23rd in baseball in isolated power, the 3rd highest strikeout rate in baseball against lefties at 31%. So, Marco Gonzalez, he's actually had a decent start to the year for the Mariners. He's 1-0 with a 4.22 ERA. His last start against the Guardians, 5 2/3 innings, 1 earned run, 5 strikeouts. You'll take that all day long. No home runs allowed for Marco. That's a really good signing. We know he's had issues giving up the long ball in years past. And I do think he's good enough here against Eric Lauer. The Mariners' numbers against lefties aren't the best either, team OPS-wise, but they definitely have much better isolated power numbers, a lower strikeout rate to go with it. I think the Mariners are good enough here to grab a W, so give me the Seattle Mariners on the money line. Next up, we see the Atlanta Braves taking on the San Diego Padres. Charlie Morton and Nick Martinez on the mound in this one. I want to take the over in this game. We see Nick Martinez, who just faced this Atlanta Braves lineup back on April 7th. He struggled in that game. He struggled overall this season. He gave up 4 earned runs, a home run, and 5 walks in only 4 2/3 innings against Atlanta in that game. And overall, he's given up the home run ball in each of his first 3 outings. His control has been off. He has a 10-11 walk to strikeout ratio. It's not very good at all in your first 17 innings of work. And I think the Braves, one of the more powerful lineups in baseball, will be able to get to him for a few runs and maybe a few home runs in this game. On the other side, Charlie Morton, although he's pitched fine on the road so far this year, we know last year he really struggled away from Truist Park, where he had a 5.72 ERA in about 80 innings on the road. I don't really trust him in a game like this against the Padres offense. It's off to a little bit of a slow start this year, but we know still on paper one of the best lineups in baseball. I'm going to take the over in this Braves-Padres showdown. Next up, we go to Yankee Stadium as the Los Angeles Angels take on the New York Yankees. Johnny Brito and Griffin Canning are your starters. It's tough to back the Yankees here with Brito on the mound. He's coming off a start against the Minnesota Twins where he was not able to get out of the first inning. He only went 2/3 of an inning, giving up 6 base hits, 7 earned runs, a home run, a walk. Didn't have any strikeouts, obviously. He pitched really well in his first start of the season, but struggled even more and more in his next couple of starts. In his second start against the Orioles, although he only gave up 1 earned run, he only had 2 strikeouts with 2 walks allowed in 5 innings of work. So that's a little bit concerning. Now you're facing an Angels team. It's been inconsistent offensively, but I still think that they can get to Brito at Yankee Stadium for a few runs. And Griffin Canning, although he was injured and doesn't have a lot of work in the offseason, he pitched well in his first start of this year in the regular season. 5 innings, 2 earned runs, 4 strikeouts, no walks, no home runs against the Washington Nationals in a 3-2 Angels win. I think he's good enough here getting plus money with the Angels. I'm going to take the Los Angeles Angels on the money line. Next up is the Baltimore Orioles taking on the Washington Nationals. We're going to see Mackenzie Gore going for the Nationals. No official starter for the Orioles right now. It's tough to back the Nationals in this game as the Orioles have crushed left-handed pitching to start 2023. This is a team with a 13.9% walk rate, highest in baseball, not really boding well for a pitcher in Gore, who has walked 4+ batters in 2 of his first 3 starts this season. They're also team OPS-wise and isolated power-wise, number 2 and number 3, respectively, in baseball. Low strikeout rate as well to go with it. I think Mackenzie Gore struggles in this game. He's definitely coming off his weakest start of the season, where he was only able to go 3 2/3 innings against the Angels because his control was off. He walked 4 batters, gave up 2 earned runs along the way. I think the Orioles get to him for a few runs early, add a few on this Nationals bullpen, and grab a W and a run line cover in the end. So give me the Baltimore Orioles. I'll take a little bit on the money line, sprinkle a little bit on the run line. Next up, we see the Minnesota Twins taking on the Boston Red Sox. Joe Ryan and Corey Kluber on the mound in this one. Now, when you look on paper, Joe Ryan off to that 3-0 start with a 2.84 ERA. He's got 26 strikeouts in his first 19 innings of work. Off to a great start, no doubt about it. But I do think the Twins are a little bit overvalued in a spot like this because of those numbers. When you look at a pitcher like Joe Ryan, I'm always a little bit hesitant taking pitchers like Joe Ryan at hitter-friendly ballparks where a lot of home runs are hit. Stadiums like Fenway Park, Yankee Stadium, Coors Field, Great American. You know, Joe Ryan is a very fly ball heavy pitcher. Right now, his ground ball to fly ball ratio is 12-29 this season. So it's good if he's able to miss a lot of bats and earn a lot of strikeouts. But when he's getting outs that are put in play, usually they are fly balls. And if a stadium like Fenway Park, we know at the Green Monster, fly balls usually end up either off the wall or over the wall. So, you know, I am a little bit concerned with that because the Boston Red Sox numbers against righties have actually been pretty solid this year. When you look at their isolated power numbers, they're top 10 in baseball. Their team OPS numbers are top 15 in baseball. And the big thing for me is their strikeout rate is 4th lowest in the league against righties. Only an 18.7% strikeout rate. Only the Nationals, Guardians, and Mets have lower K rates this year. So if Joe Ryan's not able to earn those swing and misses and earn those strikeouts, if he's giving up those fly balls, I do think he's going to be in trouble in a game like this. So even though I could see Corey Kluber struggling, I think it's going to be a close game, high-scoring game. I think the Red Sox have some value on him at home. So give me the Boston Red Sox on the money line. And the final game for Wednesday's card in Major League Baseball, it's the Toronto Blue Jays taking on the Houston Astros. Jose Barrios and Luis Garcia are your starters in this one. 2 starting pitchers that have not been very sharp to start 2023. In fact, both guys with ERAs above 7.5 to start the year. Now, Jose Barrios has struggled on the road. We saw that last year. We're seeing it in the first 2 starts this year. He pitched really well at Rogers Center in his first home start of the season against the Tampa Bay Rays, but he has struggled away from home, while Luis Garcia has struggled both on the road and at home. He has given up at least 3 earned runs in each of his first 3 starts, at least a home run in each of his first 3 starts. He's walking a good amount of batters. He's not really pitching deep into ball games. So, you know, I do think Barrios, although he struggled on the road, he has been able to miss a lot of bats, a lot more bats than Garcia. He's limited the walks. He's only given up 1 home run this season. So, yes, he's giving up a lot of base hits, but I do think he's been the better starting pitcher overall. You know, I do think that Barrios, like I said, the better starting pitcher overall. I think the Blue Jays' numbers against righties have been better offensively. So for me, I'm going to take the Toronto Blue Jays in the first 5 innings. I'm going to take them on the money line those first 5. And that's it. Those are the games for Wednesday in baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.